People living in a Hampton neighborhood say they have been living in terror of a pit bull. They say the dog has attacked several times, biting a woman and even killing a smaller dog. Neighbors say they've made several calls to animal control, but nothing was done about it until now. Robert Boyd has the story.
Well, Hampton Animal Control just removed the pit bull from this house around 7 o'clock this evening, and neighbors who live around here question what took so long. They say the pit bull attacked 3 different pets in 2 separate incidents, killing one of them.
This should have never happened. My dog had a lot of life left in him.
Joe Stillwell was walking his Jack Russell Terrier named T-Bone past his neighbor's house on Saturday when he says a pit bull went breaking through the backyard fence. T-Bone didn't stand a chance.
It was as vicious and as heinous as anything you could possibly imagine. He basically ripped my dog in half. I couldn't get the dog to release.
T-Bone's injuries were so severe he had to be put to sleep. Neighbor Richard York says this is the second time the pit bull has broken through the fence. The first time was in February when York's wife, along with his 2 Cavalier King Charles Spaniels, were attacked in their own backyard.
The pit bull turned on her, bit her on her left leg, knocked her to the ground.
Neighbors say animal control was called again and again, but nothing was done.
It's very disappointing, sad, and disconcerting that T-Bone had to die before anything was taken seriously.
Neighbors say even this latest attack took 3 days to be dealt with. Animal control removed the pit bull Tuesday evening after several calls were made to the city manager and city council.
I don't feel that they're protecting us as citizens very well if they can ignore something like this.
The owner of the pit bull, who has 4 young children, reluctantly turned the dog over to animal control.
Our kids are in the car crying right now because their favorite dog is being taken away because of what happens to be a freak accident.
Jessica Person said she never saw her dog as a threat to the neighborhood.
Everybody else saw her as a threat, but me, my kids, and anybody came to the house saw her as like the most loving person.
Animal control declined to speak to 13 News Now. The fate of the pit bull will now be decided in court. In Hampton, Robert Boyd, 13 News Now.